Travel Weekly webcasts in partnership with the PC Agency, the travel consultancy amplifying luxury brands and boosting sales through expert PR, trade representation and dynamic marketing.
Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the next in our series of webcasts that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Brad Miller, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Manchester Airport. So welcome, Brad. Thank you for sparing the time.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Now, I'm really excited to be talking to an airport because, of course, we've had lots in the news. We're hearing indications that international travel is going to be able to resume, and obviously that's, I'm sure, great news for you. But I think first thing we'd like to know for agents watching this who are selling holidays to their customers, hopefully for the rest of 2020, for a bit of the summer, etc. But what's the experience going to be like at Manchester? What can they expect?
Well, as you can imagine, it's going to be a bit different. It's going to feel a bit different. You're going to see some different things. Above all, the number one message for me to get across is it's totally safe, completely safe and secure. We're an airport operator. We always look at safety and security pre-COVID-19, even more so now. So the safety and people's well-being, sort of joining security even more. And so what are people going to see differently? Well, at Manchester and across our group, actually, we took the lead from an industry perspective. We insisted on people wearing face coverings, 4 or 5 weeks ago now. So all of my colleagues you'll see out and about in the terminals, in any public-facing area, everybody from Manchester Airport will be wearing a face mask. We're encouraging our partners to do so, but obviously they go through their own risk assessments, so you will see some idiosyncrasies out there. We're all wearing gloves where we've determined it necessary. We're introducing face shields for people in meet and greet and such. You'll see a lot more perspex up around the place, so on check-in desks, at boarding desks, where you go through your boarding card with through security. At the back of the security lanes, if people have forgotten that bit of hand gel in their hand luggage, you'll see it there to protect both my colleagues and people travelling through the airport.
What about actually at security, where you get your belongings out and you put them in those trays? Because I remember right at the start of this, a national newspaper journalist was saying that is the worst possible place. It's a breeding ground for infection. And, so what are we going to see there where we have to get our belongings out and put them in those trays and take them through security?
Yeah, it can be a breeding ground, but not a Manchester Airport. So within our new terminal, for instance, all of the security trays, once we open that, they're impregnated with a disinfectant. So it's actually as part of the manufacturing process. We're also working with our cleaning partner. We've invested in brand new cleaning equipment so we can actually aerosol the disinfectant. So not only for security, but we can cover greater distances. We can actually follow the passenger's journey through the airport. So we can cover vast areas, like a whole gate area, within about 2 minutes. And we're also applying a brand new product that kills coronavirus. It acts like a sealant and it can last for up to 6 months. Now, this is a brand new product for us and for the rest of the industry. So we are having to go back and test it. So in those high traffic areas, we're making sure that it does have that holdover period. So unfortunately, you can't see it, but we know it's there, and we're going to continue that regime. We've got a lot of additional people out in the terminal cleaning, and they're wearing very highly visible uniforms. And all of those people, they're concentrating on those higher touch points. So light trays, like lift buttons, handrails, door handles, anywhere you can get sort of transition points, so sort of boarding card readers, etc. So we've got all of those teams out and about in the airports.
And what about temperature scanning? Will that, is that in place?
So we've been trialling the equipment. We've been doing that for about 3 or 4 weeks now. There's some new equipment turning up at the end of this month, so at the end of June. And again, we're going to be trialling that. It's not mandated, it's not regulatory at the moment, but we wanted to get ahead of the game just in case it is stipulated. So we can make sure that our operation, we're used to using the equipment. We know how it interfaces with our operation. We understand how passengers are going to react to it. And also, it's allowed us to start those conversations with our airline partners because obviously some are asking for it, some would prefer it, some don't. And so to try and sort of keep the 70 odd airlines that use Manchester Airport to work with all of them, we wanted to make sure that we could understand these types of questions that we'll have to answer. So until it's absolutely mandated, we won't formally bring it in. We'll continue to trial, and we'll continue collecting the data in terms of people's temperatures and how many people are above the 37.8 and how many are absolutely fine. But those conversations with the airlines have been key in terms of where in the airport journey should thermal imaging take place. What happens if somebody fails? Why might they fail that particular test? And there's a whole raft of different reasons why you might, ranging from you're a bit anxious through you've just been doing exercise, you may have had a drink the night before, you may be going through the menopause. There's so many different reasons, and are we going to rely upon one test being failed, or are we going to have a second, allow people a second go at it? If people then get rejected, who pays for the flight? It's just a whole raft of different things we need to work through, but the trials allowed us to unearth all of that.
Okay, so that's ongoing, and they're all things that you're aware of and that you're going to try and get to the bottom of. I mean, I guess my question would be the implications of all this, both financially, because I guess all this is not, it's going to cost you, and also just in terms of sort of timing, because I know, well, we spoke before you were at a business breakfast, and you were responding to some criticism that sometimes the journey through the airport wasn't as smooth as it could be, and you accepted that, but you said things were getting much better. So that's great. But are all these new measures going to come in then and sort of put a stop to that momentum that you were really gaining on those improvements?
Yeah, so I mean, when we previously met, and I was at that seminar, which was a face-to-face one. I mean, how weird does that sound now? Yeah. We were focusing, we were refocusing our energy on customer service. We knew we weren't achieving the heights that we were aspiring to, so we put a lot of investment and time and money behind that to get our customer service back up to at least an acceptable standard. And I think what you'll see now, that's given us a good foundation, even post COVID-19. All of my colleagues, bar none, I can't think of a negative example of where people haven't taken a positive attitude to this. They just want to see people coming back through the airport. They want to be able to get people through as quickly as possible so they do feel safe. The measures we've introduced, yes, it is going to slow things down. If you have to remove your mask at security, just that 5 or 10 seconds per passenger, it's going to have some form of impact. We're adopting a lower throughput assumption for security. So we're debating at the moment, how quickly should we start to reopen all of our terminal facilities? Because I'm sure you know, and a lot of people on the web watching this will know that we've been operating out of Terminal 1 just on its own for the last few weeks. Come the 1st of July, we open T3 as a bit of an indication. Yeah, a bit of an indication that hopefully passenger numbers are going to start to come back. We're going from 7 to 10 flights a day up to into July. We'll get to 50 compared to the 600 or 700 we're used to at this time of year. But we've obviously got Terminal 2 to think about as well. So if we are continuing to see lower throughputs, we have the choice to open up more facility to help people get through as quickly as we can. But we're doing other things as well to help people. So you can imagine there's a lot more hand gel coming through the airport. And it's ending up in people's hand luggage, which we're having to reject, which is one of the major sources of queues at airport security. So to help that and help educate people, we're actually bringing a smaller X-ray outside security so people can actually put their bag through. It's not the real thing. It's not like as you go through security, it's before you get there. So it's a little bit of a mock exam. It's a bit of a test for people so they can see if their bag's going to be compliant or not when they go through the real thing.
That's a good idea.
So, just all these little things just to try and help people get through quicker. Not to mention the pre-book security that we've introduced as a trial.
Okay, all right. So plenty of things going on. Well, I mean, I guess the key thing is that people haven't been able to travel because we've had this quarantine in place, which has dampened everything. And obviously, we've been campaigning for that to be removed and for these air bridges to be put in place, which we're now obviously hearing whispers from the government that is going to be put in place. But I just wanted to know what Manchester Airport's role has been in the sort of in a campaigning or in a lobbying position for those things.
Yep. In a word, huge. So publicly, you wouldn't have seen us be openly critical like others have been of the government. We've chosen to take a tack of we want to work with people. It's a MAG thing. We always try and collaborate wherever we can. And so my colleagues in sort of group roles in corporate affairs, they've been lobbying really hard behind the scenes. They introduced the ideas or helped with the idea of air bridges a few weeks ago. They've been trying to inject that into government at all different levels across a lot of different departments. But not just introducing the idea, but how it might work as well. So coming with a ready-made solution. And we're now slowly starting to hear some of that language and some of that lobbying coming back out of government, which is encouraging.
Yeah.
Because they're potentially the signs that those
taking it on board.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. But of course, the air bridges, I mean, the ones that we're hearing about, it's not going to be to all EU holiday destinations, is it? So I wonder how that will impact. I mean, you talked there about hopefully getting up to 50 flights, but it's a fraction, isn't it, of what you would have been doing. So what are the implications of that for the airport, that the air bridges are obviously going to be limited at first?
Any easing or any certainty that any consumer can get is going to be beneficial. During lockdown, 98 to 99% of our revenues were completely wiped out, but we've only managed to get our cost base down by 12 to 15%. So it's had a huge financial impact on us, as well as the rest of the industry. And we're not unique in that regard. But the limited air bridges, I think it just gives people confidence that you can fly. It is safe to fly, and it is. We've been in, as well as all the things I've mentioned, we've been employing our own medical experts to give us that second opinion. So as well as adhering to government guidelines, we've been going above and beyond that and sort of taking advice separately, which in addition to all of that. And hopefully, if we do see, fingers crossed, we do see air bridges come in, as soon as the government and regulators do see that they can work, then maybe that will give them the confidence that they can open up more.
Open more, yeah. And as you're saying, a gradual sort of resumption of flying is probably going to be helpful whilst you're still getting these new measures in place. But in terms of long haul, or particularly transatlantic, then I mean we had reports just this morning in the Nationals of people suggesting could be the end of the year before we see that, which would be pretty major, and particularly for, say, Virgin out of Manchester. I mean, that's a big carrier, big partner of yours, isn't it? So what's your view on sort of the return of long haul transatlantic flying?
When that happens, who knows? It's not just UK government that's involved with that conversation. It's obviously authorities across the Atlantic. What we do know for sure, talking to our airline partners, is there's massive pent-up demand out there for transatlantic. This year and next, as I understand things. So the market is still really strong. The Northwest, the catchment area hasn't changed. It's still, we've still got people that want to fly. There's that demand there, so that's encouraging. It's just how quickly can we unlock the rules? How quickly can we unlock quarantine, and then how quickly can our government work with the US to lift those travel restrictions?
Yeah.
From Virgin's perspective, they must be, they can't wait. Disappointingly, there's a number of carriers that pulled out of the North America market from Manchester. So they're going to have a lot of, particularly the East Coast, to themselves.
If they're allowed to resume. And just in terms of all the airlines you work with, you're always trying to get new partners in and opening up new routes. That's been something you've been very successful at. You must be talking to your airline partners all the time. I mean, do you get a sense that they're going to stick with their routes and stick with Manchester, or are you worried at losing some of the carriers that have come in perhaps more recently?
We have lost some. So United said they're not going to fly from Manchester. American have obviously shut down their program. Only had Philly left. There's a few other long haul carriers that have started to trim back. But then saying that, there's the other side of the coin. Qatar never stopped flying all the way throughout lockdown. Emirates are back. Etihad are talking about, coming back, Singapore, Cathay. So I think all of the work that the aviation development team have done themselves, and then working sort of with the trade to make these routes successful, they're going to have to go back over old ground on some of these routes. But the fundamentals haven't changed. There's still a really strong catchment from the northwest.
Yeah, and so hopefully, we'll get them back flying as soon as possible. You mentioned the financial impact on the airport, which, unsurprisingly, that will be huge. I mean, I saw a report came out this morning, the Airport Operators Association of its member airports, suggesting up to 20,000 jobs are now at risk at airport operators. As the full effects of the pandemic sort of really are beginning to be felt, and we've obviously seen Swissport announcing thousands of job losses. So. Yep. Is there still more pain to be felt by airports such as yours in terms of redundancies and contraction?
If I talk from an industry perspective to begin with, potentially, no business is immune from the effects of losing almost all of its revenues, but every airport has massive fixed costs. We just simply can't switch off. Business rates being one of them. We're the single biggest contributor to business rates in the northwest, and likewise Stansted for Uttlesford down in the south. So there's some structural problems there for all airports. From a MAG perspective, our focus has obviously been safe operations, and then sort of second to that, there's a number of things that are on the podium in the silver position after safety. Has been about the long-term health of all of our airports, and in that, our aim has always been the long-term retention of jobs. So furlough and the job retention scheme has really helped with that. If it goes on for years, then again we won't be immune, but we're going to be doing everything that we can to make sure we can protect as many jobs as we possibly can, because we're still not 100% convinced that there won't be a bounce back. Obviously, it's going to take time, because we're seeing carriers, they're reducing their fleet sizes, they're reducing their own crew sizes, and then we're starting to see some of their supply chain reduce their employee numbers. So that is bound to have an effect on the programs that they can put on.
Yeah, and you mentioned the furlough scheme as clearly being helpful and various things from government, but obviously you also talk about the rates that you have to pay. But what would you want? Is there anything else that you would, if I said what would your 3 demands of government be? I mean, is there anything else that could help you as an airport to withstand the next couple of years while the sector gets back on track?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, if we can all get revenues flowing back anywhere close to what they were pre-COVID-19, the industry will largely be able to take care of itself. So giving us certainty would be the absolute number one priority. Lifting quarantine without delay, even if that's with a risk-based approach to getting people flying again. Open up the air bridges, but give us some rules and regulations, some guidance that we can interpret and consumers can understand, to give them certainty about booking with confidence. Sort of replicate all of the measures that ourselves and our airline partners have put in place to give people the confidence that it's safe to fly. Second to that is look at some of the fixed costs that go directly to government or government departments, whether it be for airports and or airlines, and see what a package of measures could be taken there. Business rates is the absolute obvious one. It's probably one of our biggest non-employee costs across the year. But like most large airports, we pay significant sums towards policing as well. So there's a handful, and it's only a handful of real big ticket items that, if possible, that they're where we'd like to see some form of measures from government. Obviously, the furlough scheme has been really welcomed in terms of allowing us to furlough a lot of our frontline colleagues in particular. That's starting to change from July onwards, and that's probably why you're starting to see the actions being taken by the likes of Swissport.
Yeah,
they operate much lower margin businesses. They're much more susceptible to reductions in volume, and so that's why they're having to act. I imagine, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, again, they're probably looking at the long-term health of their business. So again, anything that can be done doesn't have to be aviation specific, but extend it out to aviation and hospitality, and look at those industries that at the moment are at the back of the queue in terms of opening up from lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose, the other thing I wanted to ask you, Brad, I mean, obviously you had we lost Thomas Cook. They were based at Manchester. That was a big blow for you. Now we've had COVID-19. I know you're not, you're one of all the airports dealing with that, but it's another blow. And yet you were on this big sort of expansion trail, weren't you? We had fantastic plans, really exciting. So what's happening with your expansion? Are you going to have to put that on hold a little bit for a few years, or whilst you just get through this next sort of obstacle that we're facing?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, very, very ironically, I'm getting excited about reopening T3 on the 1st of July. That was the date that we were supposed to be opening our brand new facility. It's so disheartening, just because of all of the effort, not just from the project team, our airline partners and our ground handlers. They gave us so much time throughout a 5-6 year period. Whilst from inception all the way through the design, the procurement, going on site, getting all of the operational readiness correct, so we could have the confidence to open the thing. Right before we were just about to start all of our live flights and all of our real testing, lockdown hit us. So just devastating, really, and not least because we spent £1 billion on it. But that's there. The facility looks fantastic. It matches all of our aspirations, all of the CGIs that we've been sharing with people over the last couple of years. It looks exactly like it.
Like that,
so
great.
We're hoping early 2021 that we'll be able to open the facility. It's ready from an airport operations perspective. We need to do some work with our airlines to make sure that all their crew rooms are fitted out, things like this. All of the retailers, they're ready to go. The lounges, etc. Not all of those are finished off, and then we do need to go through our rigorous testing regime. So we had a full schedule of about 3 months worth of testing that we had mapped out with all of our partners. We need to do that before we have the confidence to open it. So we're probably looking early 2021. And then
so it's really only 6-7 months then after you planned. That's not bad, given what we're going through.
No, it's good from that perspective. I think the next phase in terms of refurbishing the existing terminal, what we do there, we're having a foot on the ball moment, to borrow a sporting analogy, and just taking stock ourselves, what's happening with industry, and then when are we going to go again? We know what we want to do. It's just going to be the timing of it.
And presumably the cost.
Yeah, I mean the cost.
Because you've got other things you've now got to pay for that you wouldn't have been budgeting for before COVID-19, I'm sure.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, ourselves, and again, our airline partners, ground handlers. I think this is going to introduce a number of sort of OPEX lines that we previously didn't expect.
Okay. All right. Well, look, finally, because I know I'm conscious of your time, Brad, but clearly this will be being watched by suppliers and airlines and travel agents. And I know the trade has been, or you've been very proactive with the trade all the time, keeping them involved in, and they've been supporting you. So what would your message be to travel agents, particularly those who are selling flights and holidays from, your catchment area? And what would be your message to them, if in terms of assuring them that the airport will be safe?
Well, I think that is the message. Number one, it is safe. We're really confident it is. We've adhered to all of the government guidelines, and we've gone above and beyond, and we've employed our own expertise. And they've walked through, literally and metaphorically, through the airport journey. They're confident that they would travel through our airport and with our airline partners. And I think, don't just take my word for it. Come and see for yourself on the website. So look at our press releases. Look at all the social media that we've been putting out, and if you want us to send any of the sort of the posters and the messages that we have up around the terminals, more than happy to do that. I think where people can really help play their part in getting aviation back up and running. It's such an important industry, not just for the people that work in it, but for the UK as a whole. Give people the confidence, communicate that out, pass on the message that not just ourselves, excuse me, but our airline partners. We're taking this really seriously, and it is safe to fly.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'm sure they will take that message. It's brilliant to talk to you, Brad. We wish you all the best of luck with everything that's coming up, and thank you for your time today.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Travel Weekly webcasts in partnership with the PC agency, the travel consultancy amplifying luxury brands and boosting sales through expert PR, trade representation and dynamic marketing.